from the laboratory. If we don't get good numbers from the laboratory, we don't know what the bugs are doing, we don't know what the solids are in the plant, and we don't know which way to stagger our pumps and alternate the flows and the pumping rates and so on and so forth. So really, it takes 2 or 3 dedicated people in the lab to take these samples and read them every day and let the operating superintendent know which direction he should go.
Here's a quick tour of the laboratory given by one of those dedicated people, Lab Manager Virginia Serta.
This is a typical setup for a CBOD5 test. These are run 3 times a week, and that's required by the state. You have to do 3 times a week for various testing. These are all required for our permit, I guess we also do in-house testing, which is sometimes just extra testing. So we basically we do around 20 tests, different tests in here. And we're a fully certified lab. This is a top-loading scale, and it's used to weigh dry chemicals and to make up prepared solutions that are needed for various tests. This is a CBOD test, carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demand. It's a 5-day incubation period to see how much dissolved oxygen is utilized in 5 days, incubated at 20 degrees. And it's an indication of how well the plant is running. We do it on influent and effluent. It's required by the state to be done 3 times a week.
This test is also run on a composite basis, which is 24-hour continuous sampling.
We make our own distilled water, just purifying our regular tap water here. And we hit just a holding tank that we use, and we use this for our normal preparation of rinsing and washing. We also buy some distilled, which is a little bit higher grade water that we use for a little bit more of the sensitive testing.
The laboratory uses a conductivity meter for quality control of the distilled water it produces. This device conducts electrons through the water. The state requires the distilled water to meet certain criteria. The lab must meet these requirements in order to use the distilled water it produces.
We have our own sterilizer, so we have to sterilize the glassware. For some of the tests, we use it. For the phosphorus test, we use the sterilizer for that. This is our drying oven. Here we have a chart, and this is again requirement. We have to take we take the temperature twice a day. We have to make sure the temperature is between 103 and 105 degrees when we're drying out our samples, and we have to put the time and initial. This is one of the state quality assurance, quality control programs. These are typical of what they're called Gooch crucibles. And what we do is just take a certain amount of the liquid sample, filter it through with the filter paper. Of course, this has been pre-weighed. We dry it in the oven for 1 hour, cool it off, and re-dry it. And just by calculations, we get to know how much solids are in. This is our pH, we call it station, where pHs are taken. We take quite a few pHs every day, probably 10 to 12 pHs. And most of them are required, again, by the state to be done. And we keep our working sheet for the day over here so that at any time anybody coming in, they can just look at the numbers and see what's going on in the various parts of the plant.
Suspended solids in the plant must have a steady pH because the bacteria depend on it. The lab does a good job of balancing pH, as it has never had a pH problem.
These are called Petri dishes, and this is part of our fecal coliform test. And what we have to do is 8 times a month run a sample on our effluent to see the fecal coliform that's growing out into the river.
The lab must keep detailed daily records of all its activities. The state is very specific in its requirements and sometimes spot checks the books going back 1.5 years. Lab personnel are diligent in recording every sample and every test. This information is entered into a computer and used to create a discharge monitoring report, or DMR, which is sent to the state to ensure compliance with all regulations.
Now, I like to think that the lab is the heart of the plant, because its first indications are in here of how the plant is running. Keep an eye on what's coming in and what's going out. It's not only for the state requirements. I think just the idea of it's also the plant operations. And a lot of times after working so many years in the lab or with the samples, you might see just a slight change in color and slight odor, change in the odor without having exact numbers, and you get to know what's going on in the planning. So, also looking in the microscope, you can see what's really going on. You can tell the operator, the super, what you think is possibly happening. But it is extremely this is the only place that you really see everything that's going.
1997 marks the 25th year since the Rockaway Valley Regional Sewerage Authority was formed. This project became a reality as a direct result of the cooperation, assistance, and support of many dedicated individuals. The interaction and involvement of the officials of each of the authority's member municipalities was imperative. Without the daily contributions of the plant's loyal staff and employees, the plant would not have continued to operate. And the assistance and encouragement of state and federal elected officials was invaluable. Here are a few final thoughts from John Whalen, Robert Bush, Fletcher Platt, and Joseph Mariziti.
I'll never forget when we finally got this plant built, and we were able to cut it into service and open up the gallonage for people to connect to it. And it was shortly after the dedication of this plant, and connections were already being made to it from some of the communities. I was in town one day, one evening, after work, coming out of the barber shop. A woman ran up to me and said, John. I said, stop. She comes up and throws her arms around me and says, thank you so much. Do you know now I don't have to go to the laundromat ever again? Seems as though they had moved into Rockaway Township, into White Meadow Lake area, maybe 15 years before, and had always had a septic problem. And she was never able, the septic couldn't handle the normal things that go into the septic tank and handle a washing machine too. And she only had 2 children, but it was still an overtaxing burden on the sewers. She was very happy, but I was completely floored.
The success of this project over the years has been due to the dedicated efforts of all the members from the municipalities comprising the Rockaway Valley Regional Sewerage Authority, and also to the dedicated professionals that we've had over the years giving